Tom Kozlowski with you here on 104.5 The Team and 104.5theteam.com. Joining us on the phone lines, he's covering UFC 192 live from the Toyota Center in Houston for Fox Sports. We talked a lot back in Syracuse. He went to school. He's a big Orange fan. I'm a Syracuse native. We had a lot of fun. And joining us again is Ariel Helwani. Ariel, are you getting the excitement? UFC 192, just a few days away, a big matchup between Cormier and Gustafsson, and a great card coming up.
Yes. Well, I'm not in Houston just yet, so I would imagine that I'm going to feel it even more when I get there. But it's great to be on with you again. Congrats on the new gig.
Thank you.
And I got to say, 192 kind of flying under the radar, but it's an amazing card. 13 fights, and every single one of the fights really has an intriguing aspect to it. So I would not sleep on this one. This is really one of the stronger cards of the year.
We're going to talk to Johnny Hendricks tomorrow here on 104.5 The Team. What does Johnny Hendricks need to do to get back to the top of the welterweight division where he sat 2 years ago?
I think he pretty much needs to beat Tyron Woodley. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of room between this fight and fighting for the belt. He was promised a title shot. Well, he was promised a third crack at Robbie Lawler and then took the Matt Brown fight. And I think he thought that if he would have defeated Matt Brown, which he did back in March, he would have received the title shot. But in the end, I think the UFC kind of made the right call. They put Rory McDonald in there with a fresh matchup, and look at the fight that he produced along with Robbie Lawler in July. So I think if he beats Tyron Woodley, there's not much else. Rory's going to come back in January. Last I heard, they wanted to book Rory versus Hector Lombard. I think he could really cement himself as the number one contender and get another crack at the belt if he wins on Saturday.
And, of course, the main event, Alexander Gustafsson versus Daniel Cormier. What will Gustafsson need to do to try to dethrone the champ DC?
Well, he really needs to use his reach advantage to his advantage because, he's a much taller fighter. I believe he's around 5 inches or so taller than DC. And, oftentimes in MMA, and we've seen this with the likes of Alexander Gustafsson, Stefan Struve also comes to mind, these taller guys don't know how to use their height and reach advantage to their advantage. And he really definitely, he has a major feather in his cap here. He's able to, keep him at bay. Obviously, DC wants to close the distance and use his wrestling, but he can use his long limbs, his arms, his legs. He can use those things to keep him on the outside. So I really think that he needs to fight a smart fight, keep it standing, of course, and use his jab to keep DC from shooting in on him.
What are your expectations for the main event? Who do you see coming out with the win and why?
Well, it's a really tough fight, and I think some people have been sort of sleeping on the fight because Gustafsson's coming off a loss, and they still consider John Jones to be the real light heavyweight champion. But if you forget about all that other stuff, it's an amazing fight. It's a great styles matchup. I'm really intrigued by it. At the end of the day, though, I got to go with DC. I think his power, I think his ability to close the distance, I think his wrestling. And he's fought taller guys his entire career. I think he'll be able to do that. And look, the jury is still out on Alex right now because he's coming off of a loss, and that's a good thing and a bad thing in some ways because coming off a loss, you want to get your mojo back, you want to get your confidence back, all that good stuff, and usually you get a bit of a tune-up fight to do that. Well, he's right back in there in a tougher fight for the belt, so there's no room for error. So I'm really curious to see how he rebounds. This could be his last crack at a belt, at least for a while. So, I don't know, with all that being said and DC getting his confidence back against Anthony Johnson, I side with him.
And he touched on it right there. UFC 192 coming up in Houston this Saturday. Ariel Helwani will be covering for Fox Sports. And you also brought up another name there, the former champ, John Bones Jones. He's back in the news today. The former champ had his day in court, pled guilty, receiving 18 months of probation. How long will it be until we see John Jones back in the octagon again?
Well, I don't know. I mean, when I last spoke to his manager, Matikawa, they told me that it might be never.
Wow.
I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to fight again. So I don't think there's a really, at least as of right now, a timeline in place for where we'll see him. My gut says that we will see him. This is how he makes his money. This is how he provides for his family. There's too many big fights out there for him at this time, but I don't think that there's a specific date, time, etc. already in place. the timing of all this is really interesting for this news to come out and this whole thing to finally play out on the same week as the light heavyweight title fight. So that kind of gives that fight, from UFC's perspective, a nice little boost. But I wouldn't put it in stone just yet, even though I believe he will. I wouldn't put it in stone just yet that he's coming back.
Do you have any idea if he's still training at any type of high level before? He is, okay.
He is. He's he lives in Albuquerque now, and the reason that he did that was so that he could be closer to his team, his coaches over there at Jackson Winklejohn. And then this horrible thing happened back in April. But all that being said, from what I've been told from members of the team, is that he's been active. He's been at the gym. He's been helping people like Andrei Arlovsky and Holly Holm. So he hasn't been sitting on his couch licking his wounds by any stretch. He's been in there, and that's another indication that I don't think he's done competing.
Ariel Helwani joining us on the phone lines. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Ariel Helwani. Now, we bring up Jon Jones, the question up in the air whether or not he'll return to the octagon. Another popular name in the UFC that fans are waiting to see his arrival, his debut in the UFC, is someone you've spoken to a lot before in the past, CM Punk. What is the timeline of Phillip Brooks, CM Punk, Mr. AJ Lee, whatever he's going to go by in the octagon, of when he'll actually make his debut for the UFC?
Well, I can assure you it's not going to be Mr. AJ Lee. That's definitely been ruled out.
Okay.
I don't even think it was considered. I think at this point it's really up to his coaches. He's been eager to get in there from the get-go, but he has to, obviously, at this point, listen to his coaches, Duke Rufus. I always got the impression that Duke wanted a year with him at least before seriously considering the fight. That year will come in January. That's when he joined the team. So he still has a little ways to go. There's no rush. I don't think the UFC is banging on his door, demanding that he fights, demanding that he tells them when he's ready to fight. They're just kind of letting him do his thing, and then they'll ramp up, all the promotional stuff. So I don't expect him to fight before January, and that's not to say I expect him to fight in January, but just don't expect anything before that. I think we need to see that 1-year anniversary come and go, and then we could start really zeroing in on a timeline.
Maybe this is me being too much of a fan of the UFC and also of his work in the WWE, but CM Punk's going to turn 37 in October. There's going to be a point where, whether it's fans just not seeing him a lot and him just continuing to train, isn't almost the allure of the signing eventually going to wear off if he does not get in the octagon within the next 6 to 8 months?
Well, to be honest, I think to a degree the allure has gone away just because so much has happened. I mean, think about all the stuff that has happened since December. Right. I mean, maybe in hindsight, the better move would have been to announce and make that signing official when he was done the year of training. Because remember, back in December, people were kind of going nuts over this. That being said, I do believe when they'll announce it again, he goes on a media tour, all that stuff, it will all ramp up. They're doing this great documentary series. They've been following him since the beginning. So it will all come together again. I truly believe that. But it was interesting the way they did it. It's unprecedented. They've never done anything like this before. I think it's not bad. It has kind of gone away, and I think to a degree that's been a good thing for him, that he can just be left alone and do his thing. And then when they're ready, I can assure you it will be hysteria all over again. And
if I'm not mistaken, the director who's working on the documentary, someone I've spoken to before in the past, Rory Karpf, who did the great ESPN 30 for 30 on I Hate Christian Laettner. Ariel, were you in that 30 for 30?
Yes.
I thought you were. That's right.
Crazy.
Rory's fantastic.
Unbelievable, the people that have come up to me, and I've had people on the street in Times Square come up to me and be like, "Aren't you the guy from 30 for 30?" It's unbelievable how many people watch that.
With Rory on CM Punk's side for that documentary, it's going to be fantastic. I cannot wait to see what comes out of that. And you've interviewed him so many times, and the reason I continue to bring up CM Punk is because you've had almost this exclusivity with Punk being in his house. What have you learned sitting down with him? He seems like such a unique and interesting personality in now the sport.
Well, I'll tell you the number one thing that jumps out from the second I met him, from the first time I talked to him. The guy's unbelievably humble. I mean, this word gets thrown around a lot about celebrities, but he has invited me into his home 4 times now. And, the first time he didn't know me, I never met him before. The first time I ever met him was in his home. No problem at all. Yeah, come on by, hang out. He talks. Like, the guy's just, he doesn't view himself as this worldwide superstar. And even now, I think he's been humbled to a degree because he's gone out of his comfort zone and he's doing something completely different. But it's just amazing. He goes to the gym. I've talked to the people at the gym. They've just been blown away. And this is a guy who really was on the top of the mountain and said, goodbye to all that. Regardless of what you may think about him, the UFC signing him fighting inside the octagon and the NFL of MMA, just the fact that he's going out there and doing that, and yeah, sure, his stature, gives him that opportunity, but it takes some guts to say, I'm going to leave this world and go into this world where he's very vulnerable, very dangerous. He has no background there. Close the door. A lot of people hoping that he fails and shows up to the gym. He's working incredibly hard. No ego, all that stuff. He's a very unique guy. There aren't a lot like him, and I think anyone who meets him and gets some time with him and gets to talk to him would come away with the same sentiments. He's very special in that regard.
Ariel Helwani, he covers the MMA. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Ariel Helwani. Maybe I'm being a pessimist, but I'm getting a little bit nervous. I know UFC 194 is in December in Las Vegas, the main event, Aldo versus McGregor. We're going to see this happen, right? They're finally going to get it in the octagon against each other?
Well, that's the plan.
I hope so.
What are we, 2.5 months away?
Yeah.
2.5 months away from 189. I thought that was the plan as well back in July. Look, it's a physical sport. It's a dangerous sport. Crazy things happen. But, after everything, if they can't pull it off now, it's going to be hard trying to sell it again in the future. Even myself, and this could be because there's a lot of great fights coming up, but I haven't allowed myself to get fully excited for this fight just yet. I still feel like I need to wait because I don't want to get those feelings again. 189 turned out to be a great event, but it wasn't, the Aldo fight. And I think the week of that fight will just be tremendous. There's nothing like the first time, and that promotion was just absolutely incredible with the World Tour. But I'm waiting. I'm waiting a little bit to get really excited. As of right now, the fight's on. It's all good. Everyone's ready. Everyone's getting, prepared, training, all that stuff. But, fool me once, how that thing goes.
Yeah, exactly. I'll get you out here on this. I have to ask this in New York Sports Talk Show. If I didn't ask this, the fans would kill me. Are we getting closer to MMA, mixed martial arts, being legalized here in New York City? Are we going to see a big-time card in Madison Square Garden?
Well, I don't know if you saw the news yesterday. The UFC announced that they've secured April 23rd for Madison Square Garden. Now, this isn't exactly the big news of the day because they've done this in the past.
Right.
They had December 5th, secured for MSG, and of course the sport getting legalized. I think that now they're trying to go a different route. They're actually trying to put an injunction, federal injunction, take this to court and say that what the government is doing to them, not even giving them a chance to bring it up for a vote, to bring the bill to legalize MMA up for a vote in the assembly. Quick, primer here, for a bill to get passed in New York State, it has to pass through the Senate and the Assembly. It continues to pass unanimously through the Senate, but the Assembly is the roadblock. They're not even bringing it up for a vote, which for me, and I'm a Canadian, I could still figure out this stuff, seems unconstitutional, especially when it gets that kind of support out of the Senate. So they're going a different route. They're taking them to court, and we'll see what happens there. I mean, they have to always have a date ready. As you know, MSG, very busy place. The Rangers and the Knicks primarily call that home, among other people. So they need to have the date ready. But the fact that they're going to try to take this to court and then see what happens there is a pretty bold move. I think it's a move they didn't want to do, but their hands are tied at this point. They need to be in New York, in my opinion. Some people say, screw New York. A, they're probably not New Yorkers, and B, they don't understand that New York is the epicenter of the world, in my opinion. It's the media capital of the world. It's the number one market in America. You need to be legalized here if you're truly going to be a mainstream sport. The UFC recognizes it, and I'm happy that they're taking these steps. We'll see what happens. He
is one of my favorite people to interview. He's covering UFC 192 for Fox Sports. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Ariel Helwani. It's great to be him. Syracuse is playing well. The Toronto Blue Jays, he's a Canadian. They're doing well. Yeah. It's great to be Ariel Helwani right now. Thank you so much for the time, Ariel. Next time you're in New York, let me know. We're going to catch up and have some fun, all right?
Absolutely. And Pepsi Arena, I was there back in 2000. I love that place. Crossgates Mall in Albany, great place as well. Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you so much.